Okay, I think I have everything set up on my end. So I got something rather interesting today, which, well, it'll make more sense why I have my capture system out and my 2R4 cards sitting there. So I purchased this as part of a group buy, and I guess the seller of this one decided to get very creative. Okay, look at that. So I think this is the number on the PCB. So it's 23. I think this is just a piece of the excess PCB. And I don't think this is glued together. I think that's partially what the tape is for. Or I wonder if these kind of snap together. Oh, I thought the button would be far more prominent, but I guess just how. Cool. So I got 23. So this is going to be wildly unscripted, but what I have here is Lost Nintendo's Histories open source flashcard, the DSpico. Now, it is my understanding that they are using the same Raspberry Pi Pico core as you would find in a Raspberry Pi Pico, which I have one kicking around right here. Now, these things are kind of a Swiss Army knives when it comes to these type of software hacking tools. I've used this one in particular I was using to try and diagnose a PS4. I can read the UART logs off the motherboard if I enable it. But I've also used these things for RGH3ing a couple Xbox 360s, as well as having one installed inside my personal GameCube for Pico Loader. So kind of having that flexibility inside a flash card is kind of wild. I don't know if I can pop this off without breaking it. I really don't want to because this is 3D printed. Oh, it looks like it does come free. Okay, I just have to be very careful. Look at that. Version 1.3 and sort of the bones of it. I'm very curious, actually. Yep, so it is the exact same Raspberry Pi chip that is on the Raspberry Pi Pico, hence calling it the DSpico, if that wasn't too terribly obvious. So I should probably say right on the front that I am not a software person. Everything involved in this project is completely mystifying, and my only real experience with flashcards are just sort of the ones that I've picked up through my DS sort of hardware repair journey. I'm far more of a hardware person, repairing Nintendo DSi consoles, cleaning them and reselling them. So a lot of this stuff is, while I'm very ignorant to when it comes to a lot of this stuff, which I think that's why I wanted to put this video together, to try and go through the process of getting this set up, getting a game going on it, and just kind of seeing how that process is. Sort of the bulk of my software knowledge is I've maybe compiled 2 EXEs with the help of some very helpful guides or using AI to sort of walk me through the process. I'm mildly familiar with command line, but I'm at like one of the lowest levels of the low. So I think that's why this is going to be rather interesting to kind of go through the process as a whole. So what I want to do is just put it in and see what it does. And depending on kind of how it responds, if it is like a Raspberry Pi Pico, then this button that they have on their side should be the flash, or sort of that, like the button that's on the Pico. Let me bring that out again. It would be this little, this button, the boot select, that's what it's called. The boot select button. So you hold it when you plug it into your computer, then it brings up the sort of the Raspberry file that you flash the Raspberry Pi firmware onto. And I would like to kind of go through that as well. So let me plug it in. Clips in nicely. Let me bring up my scene for my capture card. Okay, it doesn't show up immediately. That might be just because it doesn't have an SD card in it at all. Well, I guess it does behave like normal flash cards in that if I don't have an SD card in it, it won't work. So here's an SD card. I don't think it has anything on it. It might just have garbage. Okay, cool. The micro SD card slot that they used actually clicks in, kind of like my Ace card. Okay, nothing. So I'm guessing I need to get this SD card loaded, which is kind of expected. So this might be a little jank, but I'll look at the software as I go. Let me get... Well, actually, I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. I did want to try what happens if I do the boot select. I'm assuming this is boot select. I actually don't know, so I'll find out pretty quickly. Yes, it is. Okay, so I'll bring that up. I am under the assumption this has not been flashed yet. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to be able to go through that process. So here's their main launch page for the DSpico. world's first open source DSi flashcard, which sort of piqued my interest. This is all completely open source. Everything from the shell or like the 3D printed shell to the PCB. Let me actually see if I can find out where to go there. So hardware, like they have, the sticker is optional. I think there's been sort of, there are some third-party sellers who can do stickers. I didn't really look into it because custom stickers like that can cost a bit, but they have the 3D printed shells. Ooh, it does look like they do have sort of official files for stickers if you wanted to get that, as well as the PCB files if you wanted to order them through any PCB assembly service. I was thinking of doing that originally, but minimum order was 5, and being that I'm not too crazy comfortable ordering PCBs, I've never done it before, but everything is completely open and just build, really. So let's go to the actual setup page. Okay, so let me go. So I'm guessing I need to go from, I need to use these two guides, but I'm just going to go off their guide right here. So let me first bring this aside here and sort of get through what we need to do. So first thing we need to do is get a Windows subsystem for Linux. Since I'm on Windows 11, that will be the subsystem I need. So I'm going to open up my terminal as admin. I already have Windows subsystem for Linux set up. I just started a new profile on Windows, so this is about as clean as I can get it without reinstalling Windows. So WSL --install. And since I already have WSL installed, I don't have to get WSL. The first time you punch in this command, it will install the Windows subsystem for Linux and then ask you to restart your PC. Restart your PC, run the command again, and it will install the Linux distribution Ubuntu. It'll pop up this fun little get started guide, but I'll just close out of that. So create the default user. I'll just do pico, punch in my password real quick. So notice that I am punching in a password, but nothing is coming up on screen. That is a Linux thing. Apparently it's for security, whatever makes you sleep at night. All right. So now I have everything set up in that regard. Let me sort of get a file system up. So when I open up File Explorer, down here there will be Linux, Ubuntu, and the file we're mostly going to be concerned about is home, and then this will be our username file. So that will be the file that corresponds with the username that you chose. Currently it's empty, but it will definitely be far more populated than that. So next we need to go install BloxDS. So on there, getting started, you want to go Linux because this is a Windows subsystem for Linux. And going down another link, we're going to open up and install the wonderful toolchain. Now, since I'm on Windows on a x86 CPU, I'm going to be downloading the Bootstrap x86. And for this file, I'll get to that in a second, so I'm going to move it manually. I think that's just the easiest way. So first, I'll run the very first command, which will create a file in Linux. Since I'm running the sudo prefix, I'm going to ask for my password. What that will do, we go back to the opt file, it'll create this. Wonderful. It's empty right now. So that Bootstrap file that we grabbed, this is my little cheat sheet I have off to the side. I'll cut it and paste it into the wonderful file. Now I do that, and kind of corresponding with my little cheat sheet I have off to the side is the command after, or the command for step 3. It's going to be unpacking that tar file. So first we'll be granting permissions to the wonderful file. That will print nothing, but it worked. Let me grab all right. So then I have my cheat sheet command, which will set the current directory to the wonderful file and extract the Bootstrap file I just downloaded. It'll poop out a whole bunch of files. And then once I refresh, there we go. It's everything we need. So then, since I already did step 4, that was just my cheat sheet, so I don't have to retype out the path directory. Run this command, which will begin installing some toolchains, right? And then run this command to configure the environmental variables, which does nothing. And we're good there. We don't need to go to the post-install guide since the wonderful toolchain is meant for, I believe, development on the WonderSwan of all things, as well as I think Super Famicom for whatever. So if you're into that, great. I'm not. I don't care. So I'll jump back over to BloxDS and continue down the steps here. So we add the BloxDS repository and then install the ARM toolchain. This will take a second. Awesome. And then set up environmental variables. We'll run that first command. Now this command always kind of gave me a problem, just copy and pasting it from BloxDS. So I just put sudo in front of it. And then the very last command we do here, this environmental variable file, and then that is it for blocks.ds. Next is installing net 9.0. I'll open that up, and then it's as easy as just running 2 commands here. So it's running this bash script right here, which this will take a little moment. And once that's done, it's actually installing the SDK for .NET. Perfect. So now we are done with that. So we'll install the last 2 prereqs. First one will be this, which will install all the tools we need. CMake, the build essentials, Git, as well as GCARM, none, EABI. Seeing that progress bar is a good thing. All right, with that done, I'll grab the last prereq command, which does nothing because that is okay. So next on the guide is first cloning the repository and running make. Now it's a little more complicated than that. I'll open up the repository, and then it will be setting my current directory to where I want all these files to be dumped. So I'm just going to put it on my home file, which will be Ubuntu, home, Pico. It'll just drop it right here. It's really up to you where you want your project folder to be, but I'm just going to put it at the base username directory. So then go up to code, copy that first link, get clone, paste link, and that will download the Git repository and dump it right here. Then what I want to do is set the current directory into this folder, which is cd little squiggly line DSpico-DLDI, and then run make. Voila! That will make DSpico DLDI. That will become important later. Next, what we'll need to do, I need to kind of get reoriented here. The next one is more or less the same thing, cloning the bootloader repository. So I'm going to set the current directory back to my username file, grab the link, git clone bootloader file, and this one has a submodule we need to initialize before running make, and then make. A little more happens on screen, but what we need pooped out is right there, bootloader.nds. So step 4, we need to patch the DLDI. Now, you'll usually have to make this directory. I have my cheat sheet, which will point straight to the DSpico DLDI we just built. Run that, patch successfully. So now the next command is to clone the encryptor repository. Same thing, set my project folder, git clone. Then I'm going to want to jump into that repository, setting it as my current directory. Let me get rid of these. And then this one will be a little different. I run .NET build. Once that is done, it will dump the executable that this built a little deep, a few files deep for whatever reason that is. We will need to go to that. So ds-rom encryptor bin debug net9, and the actual executable is right here. So for step 7, we need 2 things. Well, 1 or 2 things, I should say. The NTR and or TWL blowfin tables. Now these are actually backups of a console's BIOS. So these are the NTRs for Nintendo DS, TWL blowfish tables are for the DSi. So if we look at the DS-ROM encryptor README, I'll have a little more information. As my understanding, the blowfish tables are intellectual property of Nintendo, and even either providing it or even suggesting how to provide them would be a very risky move on the DSpico's part, because that would be grounds for Nintendo to sue them. And it's definitely how, from what I understand at least, it's how emulators are able to skirt sort of those legal limits, because they're not using proprietary code, and how some emulators get in trouble and get sued because they use proprietary binaries. So I'm looking basically for the TWL and the NTR blowfish, because I think this is for just normal. The NTR I think is just normal DSs, and the TWL are for the DSi. And I'm specifically interested in the DSi. You would think the DSi would be also the NTR, but I guess they're a little different. Now, I'm not entirely sure how to get these tables, but apparently there are means to do so. What it usually means is utilizing a BIOS dump of a DSi and pulling the tables off of it. So let me see. I did specifically ask about this because I wasn't sure, like, if these files were provided in one of the applications I downloaded, or if it's something I need to provide, and it is something I need to provide. So when I asked about it on their Discord, they gave me a GitHub link. I'm just scrolling to it on my phone real quick so I know what it's called. Okay, here it is. So the GitHub is the DSBF dump. See if I can find that. DSBF dump right here. So this homebrew software can dump the DS BIOS and firmware from a DS, DSi 3DS with slot 1 flash card or slot 2 flash card. So in this case, I'll be using one of my R4 cards for this program. So get a flash card that can run NDS homebrew, which both of my flash cards can. So download the DSBF dump, place it on your SD card. Okay, I'm going to make the bold assumption that it's right here. Sweet. Okay, and then run the app. So what I'm going to do is get my SD card plugged in from my R4 card. So USB right here. I'm guessing I'll just drop it on the main directory of the SD card. Now I'll safely eject it. So now that should be ready. So there was one thing I didn't catch when running through this guide the first time, and well, running it on a flash card that can only run in DSi mode will only pull the NDS version of the Blowfish tables, not the DSi or the TWL Blowfish tables. So in order to get those TWL Blowfish tables, I have to run a different tool, run an unlaunch, which would require an unlaunched modded console in order to pull the Blowfish tables off. So I have the DSi dumps. I have them right here in this. Right here is a dump of my DSi. The dump of a DSi can only be done through unlaunch. If you're only wanting to get the Nintendo DS dumps, you can do that via a flash card. But since no flash card before the DSpico could run in DSi mode, only a unlaunched DSi could dump the BIOS. So I'm going to take the two files we need, which is the 7, not the 9. So I'm taking the BIOS 7 and the BIOS 9 bin, and I need to rename them. So for the Nintendo DS, I run it BIOS NDS 7.ROM. Yes. DSi, it's a similar name. BIOS DSi 7.ROM. So now we included the Blowfish tables. These are critical to the creation of the firmware as a whole, so they are not negotiable. And now we run the executable. We need to drop ourselves into this directory and run the executable with also something pointed to the bootloader. I, of course, have a shortcut for that because I don't want to write that down more than once. What can I say? Type it out more than once. So I'll set my current directory to this folder. And for this command, kind of like that one other command, I did have to modify it. I did have to put // because without it, it doesn't look in this directory for this executable. This tells it to look in the directory it's currently in for this executable, and without any fanfare at all, default NDS. That is exactly what we wanted. So optional compiling WRFUXXED. Now this is for getting it your DSpico into DSi mode on an unmodified console, which I want. I'm going to head over to the repository, first set my current directory to my project folder, then git clone, and I'm going to jump into that file I just downloaded and make. Now I'm going to have to patch the bin that it made with the DLDI. So using my cheat sheet, I'll drop that in. And this tells you that you just have to have your path to the DSpico DLDI, which again, I don't want to type all that out. Now we're on actually compiling the firmware. So we'll go back to open up that repository, set my current directory to my project file, grab that, and then I need to go into the actual directory before doing this. Do that, run this command. So it'll take a minute. Now I need to begin moving files. So for step 3, I need to copy the NDS folder into the ROMs file of the firmware repository. I just have a move command written up that I'll just do that. So it'll move this all the way over to the firmware file, right exactly where we want it. So now, in order to additionally apply the exploit, we need a copy of this. Now, this is a piece of development piece of development hardware used to test, I think it was the DSi's wireless transmitter. And what we need is a dump of that piece. Now, that was, from what I understand, that's a piece of hardware that was never meant to see consumers, but it slipped out and there have been public dumps made of it. And we don't just need any, we need a very specific one. So I do have that very specific one. And where do I need to put it? I need to put it right here into ROMs as well. But first I need to do something with it. So this is the copy that I have of it, and I need to do two things to it. Well, first, I already know this one's the right one, so I am just gonna name it first. dsmode.nds, and I need to run a command to make sure that it actually matches the SHA1 string, because they have to match. So I have a command here that will look specifically in the DSI mode, or will look specifically at this file for the SHA1 character string, which is this one. Now, they look kind of similar. They look pretty much the same, but I'm not going to go one character at a time, just making sure that they work. There's another command you can run, which is just basically a comparison. So if your terminal output, which will be this number, matches this number, which is this number, then it will say match. If it doesn't, then it will say different. So I'm going to copy the string from my terminal output, skip back all the way to my sort of put your text here section, paste my terminal output over, and match. So I have the correct variant of the ROM that I need to source. The other one, I need to copy the bin over, which I have command here. That will just move it from the wrfuxxed file to the data file where we need it. And then another one is, then the next sub step here is to uncomment the command where, oh, that popped up over here. Okay, I need to uncomment this command right here, basically saying, yes, we want that. Otherwise, it would be skipped by default. Next, compile. And assuming you see everything right in the logs and nothing gets angry at you, build complete. So let me grab my Pico. There's no SD card in it, so let's just plug it in. Okay, it did just pop up. Cool. When you plug it in, it should, well, say that something was plugged in. And now when I look over here, it appears as a storage device. Sometimes the window will pop up automatically. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't know exactly what the certain setting there is to allow that to happen. But this is what the internals of the Pico will look like. It will always look like this, no matter if it's flashed or if it isn't flashed. So you never really know if it actually was or wasn't flashed. So in our firmware file, there will now be build, and our output file is right here. Copy and paste, drag and drop. Yes. It will disconnect and reconnect. That means it was done successfully. So I'm going to unplug my Pico from my computer and set it aside for now. So that was definitely the hardest part. These instructions right here were basically going over everything I just did. So now it's compiling loader and the launcher. Now there's really two ways to do this. You can either go to each the loader and the launcher and downloading the pre-compiled releases. So for Pico loader, it's DSpico. And then for launcher, it should just be Pico launcher. You can go through all of the steps to compile it yourself. It really isn't too much different than just cloning the repository, initializing submodule, make, cloning, submodule, make, and then sorting everything into the appropriate files. I'm going to skip this step. There's no real point in doing that anymore. You can just get everything pre-compiled. So what I'm going to do is go down to downloads. Then we have everything we need right here. So extract them, just going to poop them into my downloads folder. And really what you need to do is from the Pico loader, grab all this, drop it into the Pico file, and then rename launcher to, there it is, underscore picoboot.nts. And that is this step right here where you need to change the name from launcher to underscore picoboot. So now let's grab my little SD card. Now this SD card will already have firmware in it. I'm kind of cheating, so I already did this step. But if you've loaded up an SD card or a flash drive, this step is really no different. So here it is. I already have them both here, but what you would do is just drag and drop both of these into your directory so it looks exactly like this. There's also a tree that they offer. This is what your directory for your Nintendo DS or your SD card should look like, because you don't want to have, this has to be at the root. If you accidentally drop the Pico launcher file in there, it won't work correctly. So now we're going to actually get this thing put together. I have my SD card I just loaded up, as well as my DSpico here. Clip in the SD card, pop it into my capture card system. Let me swap over the actual capture window. And if done correctly with the exploit, it will boot directly into Pico Launcher. That is intentional. And if we were to just use this as a normal game cart, so that's starting it without actually clipping in the game card, it'll still boot into the normal DSi menu, and when you slot in the DSpico, it will come up with actually that development firmware ROM that we copied. From what I understand, from what I've been told, this is used to bypass the sort of very strict restrictions that the game card like software string enforces, where if you've ever used a flash card before, they always mimic another game. In this case, this one is mimicking that piece of development firmware, because that piece of development firmware was for Nintendo DSi's the best way I understand it, which is why we can get the Pico to run into DSi mode and not just Nintendo DS. So let me actually put a ROM in this. I don't know, I kind of want to see if I can make a copy of, I'm going to try and think here. So I believe with God mode, I can dump games. The only game that I have, oh yeah, I don't have a DSD card back in this thing, so it's just going to auto boot into that. Let me see if I can get God mode, and then I want to copy Mario vs. Donkey Kong Miniland Mayhem. So I know for a fact this is a DSi enhanced game, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Miniland Mayhem. I guess I can switch to my standard overhead. So I put my SD card back into my unlaunched DSi. I go back into unlaunch and open up God mode. I'm gonna take NDS game, start menu, idle manager, no, loading. Dump Mario vs. Donkey Kong, all ROM. So I just want the ROM. Mario vs. Donkey Kong V2. Now I don't know if this, I need to actually look up what the actual DSi, I don't think the DSi mode, or the DSi, it is dumping it as an NDS file. I don't know if DSi ROMs dump as in the NDSi mod or NDSi sort of format. We'll see. We will see here in a second. Or maybe it'll say something in the God mode. Okay, it doesn't say. So let me... There's all save game and metadata. Let's just say all. Okay, it's also dumping in the NDS format. So this is where I'm really sort of uncertain. Let's get this turned off for now, because I'm going to need this micro SD card. So let me power off and get the game out, I guess. I'll also grab the SD card. Let's go back to my... This is definitely in the extracurricular activity sort of portion of this video, but I am curious because I do want to know. Okay, there it is. DSi dump, it would be God mode out. So I have two... Oh, interesting, okay. Platform, DSi enhanced, so fantastic. Look at that. Save chip, timestamp, God mode version. Look at that. Okay, I think that did it. So let me grab this file, and I'm just gonna fart it onto my desktop. And then I'll grab the DSi, I'll grab the Pico. Where in the hell did that file go? There it is. Okay, let me safely unmount, plop in this. So one of the things that I was interested in finding out is if the DSi Pico can run ROMs of DSi enhanced games. So according to the information I have, this should be a DSi enhanced game. Well, I guess I'll keep that there. Why not? Let me unmount it. Eject. Because we're basically bypassing all of the security checks. To the best of my understanding, we're bypassing the security checks of the DSi by booting into an environment, basically. So get this thing in. Notice this thing has weird power issues when I press the power button. Alright, so let's ROM. Well, and it's made it a lot further than... I will want to check the audio on this too. I mean, it looks fine. Oh, look at them. They're handing out little gachapons. And then there goes Donkey Kong, who's so excited. Ah, screams Mario and Paulina. I want the gachapons. No, get out! Out of stock. Rawr! My eyes are spontaneously combusted. I'll take your lady. No, not Pauline. She's probably the mayor. I'm gonna jump on my train and chase Donkey Kong. Don't think about it too hard. Thankfully, Donkey Kong only followed the established tracks. Yeah, let me stand back and deploy my... Let me stand back and deploy my robots in my likeness that I just happen to have. They were on the train, you know. Let me grab the coins. Hell yeah. And I make the path down.
Way to go!
They've safely departed. Now I can lead them to victory. Yeah, buddy! I earned a trophy, yeah buddy.